Today I'm going to teach you step by step how to make a stunning Easter wreath for your front door. Hey guys, it's Nikki here at Stillwater's Wreath Designs. You'll find the full materials list for you below in the description of this video. You can also find today's wreath in my Etsy shop. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We've got new tutorials uploading every single week. Okay, let's dive in. Hey guys, it's Nikki here at Stillwater's Wreath Designs. Come on in. We'll be making today's design on a 24-inch pine wreath base. This actually came from Hobby Lobby. You can get them year-round. Here, I'm just taking a quick moment to fluff out that pine base. Then I'm going to stand it on its side and just give it a quick squish so that this wreath has an oval base. The first thing we need to do is grab our deco mesh. We're going to use 3 different colors here of 10-inch deco mesh. I'm going to cut 7 to 9 pieces of each at about 24 inches in length. And guys, I don't measure. I just pull that mesh up in front of me at about the same length and I cut. For today's design, we're going to be loading our pine base with cruffles. To make a cruffle, you're just going to grab a piece of that deco mesh. I just lay it up against my chest. I roll each end in a couple of times to tuck away that raw edge, which will reduce your fray, and then I scrunch and gather in the middle, which creates this cruffle. Then I'm going to come into my pine base, find 2 neighboring pine ties, place that cruffle down between those ties, and then give those ties a couple of tight twists to anchor it down. So we're going to create cruffles with every piece of deco mesh, alternating between the 3 colors, and make sure you sprinkle them throughout the wreath base on both the inner and the outer edge. Remember guys, this is just a recipe. Feel free to tweak it and make it your own. We're going to make sure that we add all of those cruffles into our pine base so that we have a nice full deco mesh base. And here's what your base is going to look like once it's all finished. Okay, let's get our sign added in. This is a pretty heavy sign, so I'm going to actually grab a couple of 20 gauge floral wire stems and use my craft stapler to staple those to the back of my sign. Once I get those 2 stapled to the sign, then we can run those floral wire stems right through our wreath base and anchor it on the back. You want to make sure when you flip that wreath over that those floral wire stems are wrapping around at least one of the 2 metal rings on our wreath. I'm just going to give those floral wire stems a couple of twists. I'll flip it over to make sure my sign is still where I want it, and it is, and then I'll continue to twist those floral wire stems until it's nice and tight. We'll just trim off those excess bits with our small snips and then use our needle nose pliers to curl those ends back and under, and then I'll just grab my hot glue gun and add a dollop of glue to make sure it's nice and secure. Okay, it's time to make our bougie bow. I've grabbed 3 different types of wired ribbon. One is 2.5 inches wide and the other 2 are 1.5 inches wide. And we're just going to make one bougie bow. We'll be making 2 loops and 2 tails with each of the ribbon types. And we'll start with that 2.5 inch wide ribbon. I'm going to make 1 long tail, probably 18 inches or so in length, and 1 short tail that's approximately 6 inches length. We'll follow that same pattern for all 3 ribbon types. And we'll just be layering 1 ribbon on top of the other. Okay, now that we've got our bow stack built, I've just grabbed a standard pipe cleaner and I'm giving that several tight twists around the center to anchor that bow together. We'll trim off those excess bits of pipe cleaner and then we can get our bow anchored in. Before I do, I'm just making sure that all of my tails go in the right direction. And I'm going to anchor that in the upper left-hand corner of my wreath. So I'm just finding 2 neighboring pine ties and twisting those around the center of my bow. Now I'm going to be dovetailing all of my ribbon tails. To dovetail your ribbon, you're just going to fold that ribbon in half, and then on the seam side, you're going to cut that at an angle to create that pretty V shape. Now I'm just going to continue to trim my tails, and then we'll fluff out our bow. For those shorter tails on top, guys, all I'm going to do is run my finger over those ribbon tails and give them a nice little curve. Then I'm going to open up all of those loops and fluff them out. And then finally, we will grab a cardboard insert left over from some 10-inch deco mesh to curl the ribbon tails on the lower part of our bow. To curl your ribbon tails, guys, you're just going to take that ribbon, wrap it around the bottom portion of that cardboard insert, and curl. You can do this as many times as you wish until you're happy with your ribbon curl. Okay, our bow is finished. Let's move on to the next step. Okay, let's cut some ribbon strips to make our ribbon tails. I'm only going to use our 1.5 inch wide ribbon, and I'm going to cut 6 pieces each. And they're going to be approximately 14 inches in length. Once I get those ribbon strips cut, I'm going to angle trim the ends, and then we can anchor them into the wreath. To add our ribbon tails in, we're going to lay one ribbon tail right on top of the other. We'll then fold that ribbon tail stack in half to find the center. And then we're going to pinch and pleat at that center point. Then we're just going to form that into a loose V over our thumb, and we're going to sprinkle those throughout our wreath. To add them into your wreath, you're going to find 2 neighboring pine ties, add the center of those ribbon tails right into the pine ties, and give those a couple of tight twists. Then I'm just running my fingers over those ribbon tails to give them a nice curve. We're going to sprinkle these throughout the entire wreath. Okay, we've got all of our ribbon tails added in. What do you think? Time for the next step. We're going to add in a super cute flocked orange bunny. The stem on this bunny is way too long, so I'm just grabbing my heavy snips and cutting that down to about 6 inches in length. I'm going to bend that stem a little bit and then grab my hot glue gun and run a nice bead of glue on that stem and the back side of the bunny. And then we'll press that down into the wreath to anchor it down. So stinking cute. Okay, guys, let's get some florals added in. We'll start with some boxwood greenery here. I'm just opening up the bush to separate out those stems, and then I'm going to push them up so that they're a nice full little bunch and trim off each stem individually. And I'm going to be leaving about 2 inches of that stem so that we can add our hot glue there to anchor it into our wreath. We've got about 10 stems here to anchor into our wreath, and so I'm just going to sprinkle them throughout at varying depths and locations on our wreath all the way around. Once I get them dry placed in, I'm going to grab my hot glue gun, add a dollop of glue to that stem, and nestle it down into the wreath. Okay, once we have all of our greenery added in, I've grabbed a bag of small decorative carrots, and we're going to sprinkle those throughout the entire wreath. Make sure to place one in the center of your bow for an extra pop. Now that those carrots are all added in, we're going to move on to the last step, which is my favorite vine greenery from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to trim off several different pieces and sizes and sprinkle them throughout the wreath. Speaking of Hobby Lobby and their florals, you guys make sure you keep an eye on their flyer. If you've been making wreaths for any amount of time, you know that greenery can be the most expensive part of your wreath designs, and Hobby Lobby has theirs on sale for 40% off every other week. Make sure that you're not being one-dimensional with your greenery. Really tuck it in at all different angles and depths. Sneak some in behind your bows and your ribbon tails, all the things. Okay, this beauty is finished. What a showstopper. What do you think? Don't forget, you can find the materials list for you below in the description of this video, and this is now listed in my Etsy shop. Bye, guys.